Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name is Natalie and I am a senior here at the University of Georgia. I graduate in 4 days and I just took my senior photos today, which is why my hair is curled. And I have been wanting to make a sit-down video on this channel, so this will be my first one, but I really kind of wanted to go through and do a look back on what my college experience has been and hopefully share it with you all so that this might help someone else. So this video is going to be kind of a mix of my anecdotal stories and my own personal college experience, but I'm also going to throw in some advice for me about just college in general, especially if you want to come to UGA, but also just some tips for succeeding in college in general. So I'm going to start by giving a little background about me and how I ended up at UGA to begin with. So I am from the state of Georgia. I am a Georgia resident, so I stayed in state to go to school. And to be perfectly honest with you all, I never in a million years wanted to come to school here. I never thought I was going to come to school here. So I grew up just a few towns over from Athens, which is where UGA is. And growing up, Georgia football was such a big thing. Everyone, that's what everyone did on the weekends in the fall. They watched football or they came to the games. Everyone always had their UGA merch on. It was just a huge deal. And my parents weren't from Georgia, so they didn't go to school here. So I didn't have that type of legacy with the school. And I also always wanted to travel and see the world and go somewhere beyond my small town. And so I was there is no way I'm going to UGA. I'm going to go out of state. I'm going to go as far away as I can, yada, yada, yada. I wanted to go to some prestigious school. I don't know. So we get to senior year and I'm applying to all these different colleges, and as I look at the colleges that I'm getting accepted to and what my offer packet's what my scholarship is to these schools, I'm looking at them and I'm oh shoot, it's still going to be very expensive to go to any of these out-of-state schools. And not only that, but UGA was also honestly the best school for my major. I always knew I wanted to be a business major in some form, and any of the other schools I applied to out of state just honestly didn't have as good of a program, so it didn't make sense to pay more money to go to college when this school was going to be the best for what I wanted to do anyways. I also knew that I really didn't want to go into debt if I could help it. And so when I came to UGA, Georgia has this thing, if y'all don't know, we have the Hope Scholarship and the Zell Miller Scholarship. Basically, Hope, if you have a certain GPA, it's something in the 3.0 area, you get half your tuition paid for. And Zell is the next tier up from Hope. Basically, you get all your tuition paid for up to your 120 something credit hours. And then when I got to UGA, I also got, I don't have a full ride here by any means, but I also got some other scholarship money from the school. So basically it boiled down to the only thing that it was going to cost me to come to school here, it was going to be living expenses. I've paid almost nothing in tuition or fees my whole time here. And so I said, also the best school for what I wanted to do. And so I was okay, I'm an idiot if I don't come to school here. And I think as much as I did want to explore some new city, Athens is a fantastic college town. And there was still a lot about Athens that I didn't know. And so I knew coming here was still going to be a new experience for me. And I also think part of the reason I didn't want to come here was because I didn't want to go to school with a lot of the people that I went to high school with. And it wasn't that I disliked anyone that I went to high school with really, but I was very studious in high school and I worked really hard, and I think in my head I felt like I needed to go to a prestigious school to prove that all the hard work I did in college paid off. But I mean, honestly, I can make a whole nother video on that. That's not a good mindset to have. Do not choose a college based off of that. Stop thinking about other people and stop thinking about what's like quote unquote prestigious, and focus on you. What's the best school for what you want to do? What's the best thing financially? And so I'm really glad that I got over that little like anti-UGA hurdle and decided to come to school here. And there were also a lot of other things that I knew I wanted to do when I came to school here that got me excited, like going on a study abroad trip, which I'll get more into that later. But there were a lot of things that made coming to school here really appealing, and so I just kind of jumped in head first. If you are someone that's like me, that's like you did not think you wanted to come to school here, like once you decide to come here, just let all your reservations go and just jump into UGA and fully embrace it, because if you do, I promise you it's gonna embrace you back and you're gonna have an amazing 4 years here. So now I'm gonna go through each of my 4 years here, and I'm gonna talk about the best of years, the worst of years, what made them good and bad, and hopefully you'll get like a little bit of insight into that. I would like to make a whole video, I think, about like tips for coming in freshman year and how to make friends off the bat, and just like a coming to college survival guide, but I think I'm gonna keep that to another video. So I'm just gonna go through each year here and hopefully give you a little insight. So when I came to school freshman year, like I said, I still knew some people from high school that were here, and I saw them occasionally, but I knew that I really wanted to branch out and make new friends, and that the people that I went to high school with, we were going to be kind of going on separate paths. And so I didn't room with any of them. I roomed with a random roommate, and I was in a living learning community. So my living learning community was for entrepreneurship, and I lived with a roommate that was actually supposed to be in the program, and then she didn't end up being in it. But that was how I picked my roommate. I had no clue what I was doing. But I came here, and that was one of the big things for me coming into freshman year. I always knew that I wasn't going to rush. Like I said, I can cover that more in another video, but I knew I was not going to be in a sorority. That never appealed to me, and so I knew coming in freshman year that I needed to position myself to be in a good place to make friends. So that's a large part of the reason why I joined my entrepreneurship living learning community. And coming in freshman year, I honestly got really lucky on the friends front. So I was not friends with my roommate freshman year, but we got along. But I was friends with all the girls that lived on the hall around me. And I lived in a very social dorm freshman year. I lived in Creswell. It's a freshman high rise. It's just the center of all activity. And I wasn't even sure if I wanted to do that. I thought that might be a little overwhelming for me, but because that's where my living learning community was, of course I lived there. And I'm really glad that I did. It was a fantastic experience, a super fun way to make friends because everyone kept their doors open all the time. So it was really easy to meet people. But that's how I became friends with all the other girls that were in this entrepreneurship program with me. So freshman year, I just jumped completely in. I was like going to all the games, even if I only stayed till halftime, because honestly, they're exhausting. That's just my opinion. But I was making friends with them. I didn't go out freshman year, but my friends and I, we would always hang out and do fun things. Half of us had a car, so we did, those of us that had a car would like drive the other ones, and I don't know, we would just go do fun things, hang out in each other's rooms. I got really lucky freshman year. When I came in, I also joined a bunch of clubs. There were a lot of things that I was interested in, and I didn't know what was going to stick, but I just wanted to try everything. So freshman year, I got super involved in clubs, and that was also a great way to meet people. I joined the club equestrian team, and I joined the Society of Entrepreneurs. And these are the two clubs that I've like stuck with all 4 years. I was also in a few other clubs. And then after freshman year, you know, you only have a certain amount of time. And so I kind of narrowed down what I really wanted to be involved in. But that was a great way freshman year. I got to meet so many different people really by just putting myself out there. I came here freshman year and I was like, I love it. Now the first week, don't get me wrong, the first week was rough. If you're coming in the beginning, you look at people having their friends and you think, oh my gosh, they have it all figured out already, and they don't. People's friend groups shift a lot, so definitely your first month, like, Just be outgoing, try to go talk to people. I know it's intimidating, but really put yourself in a good position to make new friends. That's what I did, and I was really fortunate. Things worked out really well for me. I left for Christmas break after my first year, and I really felt like I belonged here. And so spring semester, I had a very non-traditional freshman year, because spring semester I went on a study abroad trip. I went on this trip called Discover Abroad, and it was a travel-based study abroad trip. So I went to Hawaii, New Zealand, Australia, and Fiji. And throughout each country, we're like moving to different locations. So every 2, 3, 4 days, you're packing your stuff back up. You're just living out of a suitcase with like 30 other people, and you're traveling all over the South Pacific. And it was an incredible experience. And part of the reason why I did it freshman year was because it worked with my schedule. I lived in a dorm, so it was easy. It wasn't like I lived in an apartment and I had to sublease my apartment. I lived in a dorm. I was just able to end my contract. And I signed up for the study abroad trip in July before I had even moved in freshman year. And part of the reason I did that was because going on that study abroad trip was one of the things that made me really excited about coming to UGA. And I was worried that if I waited until I was older, that life and like responsibilities were going to get in the way of me going on this trip. And I knew this was something I really, really wanted to do. And so I just jumped headfirst with that. But I also knew that because I was leaving in the spring, I was going to have to work really hard to make friends freshman year in the beginning so that I would come back sophomore year and still have friends and people I was close with. So that was another part of the reason why I really jumped headfirst into making friends fall semester. So spring semester, I was out traveling all the time. It was an incredible experience. It was a lot sometimes being with 30 other people, never really being alone for 2.5 months. That was harder for me than getting homesick or anything like that, was not having any alone time because I was very independent. But it was incredible to see the world. I made a ton of friends doing that. And so that's how I ended my freshman year. I remember living in freshman year and being like, this is like the best year of my life. So freshman year was definitely up there for me, and it was a great experience. So I come off the high of having a wonderful freshman year, and man, I hit the sophomore slump big time. Sophomore year was probably the worst year for me. Sophomore year and junior year are down there. Freshman year and senior year were great. But yeah, sophomore year I hit the sophomore slump big time. I didn't even know that term until I was really telling someone about like my struggles that year, and they're like, yeah man, the sophomore slump. And I was like, oh yeah, that's what it is. So sophomore year I came in, I lived on campus again sophomore year, and I was supposed to be living with a friend, but long story short, like that didn't work out. My friend ended up like moving into her sorority house, and so I had a random roommate again. And the difference between having a random roommate sophomore year versus freshman year was that freshman year I was still friends with everyone that lived on my hall. And so I would come back at the end of the day and have people to talk to, people to share my day with. And sophomore year I didn't have that. And it was weird because even though I still had friends, I was alone a lot. Like I would really have to make strategic plans to see my friends, because now really only one or two other people I knew lived on campus. My other friends either lived in their sorority houses that year, or they lived off campus in an apartment. And so even though I still have friends and I still did things with them sometimes, I honestly felt quite lonely a lot because I didn't have someone to come back to at the end of the day and really share my day with. And I don't know, I just was like a little sad that year, to be honest. And I really tried to channel all that energy into doing other good things. So I was never a better student than I was sophomore year. I was super studious. I was trying to go to the gym and exercise more. I also became more involved in the clubs I was in. So for the Society of Entrepreneurs, I joined a committee, and so I got some responsibilities to help the club with. And I also started showing on the equestrian team that year. And so those were really the things that kept me going. And I still did see my friends when I made plans with them, but it was definitely, I don't know, it was definitely just a lot harder to feel like I was alone a lot. And that year was a kind of a rough one for me, to be honest with you. I just felt like I was kind of getting through every day and not truly like living or enjoying the college experience to the fullest. And people always say, like, you know, college is the best 4 years of your life. And it's been wonderful, but when you're going through those times where you don't feel like it's the best 4 years of your life, you really don't want to hear that. And so, I don't know, take that with a grain of salt. I really try not to say that to people, because as wonderful as college has been, everyone has a different experience, and there are some times that are really hard for people. So, sophomore year, that's how things were going. When the pandemic hit in March, I was in Disney World on spring break with some friends when we get the news that the whole school's shutting down. And we're like, oh, this is serious. And as awful as the pandemic was, obviously, did not realize the severity of it at the time, and I was honestly just glad to go home. I went back in March after spring break. I packed up everything in my dorm, went home, finished off the semester at home, and was there for the summer. And I was just glad to get out of my dorm and like get back to being with my family. So that's kind of how sophomore year ended for me. So my junior year was the year that COVID really affected, because COVID was around and running rampant all of my junior year, which was 2020 to 2021. Junior year and sophomore year, the reasons they were hard were kind of flipped. So what I mean by that, so junior year, I come in, I move into my apartment that I'm living in now, that I lived in both junior and senior year, of course. And so I move in here and I'm living with friends. And so that's wonderful to finally have people to share every little thing, the little moments of every day, just the little laughs. Especially with COVID, it was also nice to have like my own room and my own bathroom, because really I'm going on campus like maybe one day a week, maybe if that, because everything in terms of classes is still pretty much entirely online. We're still being very cautious at that point, because you know COVID's still a big what if. And so there were a lot of things about that were hard for me. My roommates honestly loved being able to do classes online. I did not. I really realized about myself that I like leaving the house every day, getting up, getting ready, going somewhere and working, even if I'm not working with people, like even if I'm just in the library and I see other people while we're working in silence, something about that just really helps me stay on track, but also it just helped my mental health a lot, seeing other people. And so just sitting in my room all day doing homework was rough. That was also the semester where school started to get a little bit harder for me. I was like starting to get into the classes for my majors, and so it took more time to do everything. I don't know. It was just very hard for me to be productive when I was sitting here in my room every day. But, and as much as my friends and I, we like weren't going out or doing anything crazy, I was still getting to be with my roommates who were my friends every day. And so I didn't feel alone in that aspect. I just felt kind of stressed about school and my responsibilities. So another big responsibility that I had junior year was that I was president of the entrepreneurship club. And that was a lot, I'm not gonna lie. It was a lot just because for the first time, not only am I in charge of a lot in terms of planning events, but for the first time now, I'm in charge of other people. I'm in charge of my peers and having them complete tasks. And that was a big learning curve for me in terms of how to be a leader, how to inspire people, what different people need in order to get their jobs done. Some exec members were very independent with completing their tasks, whereas like other people needed a little bit more guidance from me, and so that was hard learning that balance. It was also very hard because all of fall we are doing all of our events on Zoom. And do you know how hard it is to convince people to want to hop on a Zoom meeting for your club when they've been sitting on Zoom for class all day? And I get it. Would I have been tuning in if I wasn't a president of this club? No, probably not. But that made things very stressful from my end because we're still trying to keep our numbers up and get people involved when it was just such a weird time, and I don't know, it was honestly just incredibly stressful for me. Same thing going into spring semester. Things did get a little bit better with the club because we were able to host some hybrid events, so I was enjoying being on campus more and seeing people, but I still had a lot of just the stress and the weight of feeling like everything that needed to be accomplished for the club was ultimately falling on my shoulders. Spring semester of junior year, I also got into both of my majors, so I was both a marketing and a finance major, and I started my first semester of my finance classes, and the combination of classes that I took that first semester was hard. It was just hard 2 classes, and I didn't have the proper time to dedicate to them because I was being president of the other club, and I just felt very stressed about it. I also didn't have a great professor for one of my finance classes, and so I ended up dropping one of those finance classes, and I also had this big crisis in the spring about like, should I even keep my finance major? And I'm someone that's always been very studious, so having to drop a class was a humbling experience for me, and I don't know, I also felt overwhelmed because for the first time I'm sitting in a class and I'm like, this looks like gibberish, like I have no clue what's going on here. And so that spring was just a very stressful time. It was like everything that could go wrong did. I was still grateful to have my roommates, and I was still able to be on the riding team and go to a lesson every week, which was incredible, like a great way to get out of the apartment, even though we did not show at all junior year. The like horse show organization that my club is a part of, just there were no shows. And so yeah, that was pretty much how junior year went. When I pass off the reins to the next president at the end of the year for the club, the relief I felt was just immense. I also felt a lot of stress that spring semester because I didn't get a summer internship until mid-April. And when you hear all these other people getting their internships in like October through January, and you're sitting there going into April, the month before internship starts, and you don't have one, I was really in crisis mode then. So junior year was definitely an overwhelming one. But I do feel like COVID kind of like stole that year from us because my friends and I weren't going out. We were still trying to be very careful. It was really just like all the bad parts of college without the fun parts. So that year was definitely a lot. So now we move into senior year, and senior year has been up there with freshman year in terms of like my happiness level and in terms of like me feeling like I was truly living like the college experience, which I am so grateful for. So I come into senior year still at my apartment with my friends, things are good, and classes have finally lightened up for me a little bit. I'm still taking a lot of classes in both of my majors, but I'm really enjoying them, and the class load I had to take this year was lighter than it has been in previous years because I worked so hard to really fill my schedule up those past years, and I also took summer classes every single summer. So class-wise, everything was just kind of plugging along. That was great. I was still involved with the entrepreneurship club, but just in a advisor role instead of being the president, and that was wonderful for me because I'm getting to enjoy a lot of the benefits of the club without a lot of the stress that I had junior year. And everyone that was on exec for this club this year was really fun to be around. We all became friends. The girl that was the president of the club this year, she was fantastic. She was like a wonderful president, and we got to move back to having all our events in person. So now I'm leaving the house every day to go to all my classes, which for me, I just love a routine. I love getting out of the house. I get up in the morning, I get ready, I go do my thing, I see people, I do work on campus. I'm able to kind of separate doing schoolwork from being back here at the apartment because I would just go work throughout the day and then come back here and get to relax or go to clubs or just be with my friends in the evening. So socially, senior year was wonderful. And then I was also going to football games again in the fall, so that was really fun. My friends and we kind of lightened up about COVID. Everything's settling out more, and so we're going out again sometimes, just doing all the fun things about college. So I'm still on the riding team going into senior year. I actually fractured my pelvis this summer, so there was like 2 months of recovering from that, but by September, which is really the time that lessons start anyways, I was able to ride again and go back to horse shows. And the horse shows are always really fun because you get to be with the girls from the team, and I don't know, it's just a fun yet exhausting weekend. And I'd also had a lot of time to practice because, like I said, last year with COVID, my junior year, we didn't show at all, so I was really just practicing a lot and getting better. And so I started winning my division, and I just started being really consistent at the shows. And so that was really fun because it's kind of, it's a confidence boost to win and to go to a show and, I don't know, to get to perform your best. It was really an enjoyable experience getting to be back with everyone. I'm seeing all my friends and hanging out with everyone again. And this year, it's just been wonderful for that. And after junior year, when I waited so long to get my internship and felt so stressed about it, I was like, I'm not going to do that senior year. So I did a lot of interviewing in the fall, went to some job fairs. I started interviewing for the job I accepted in like November, and then I interviewed with them. That process took a while. I had my final interview in January, and pretty much immediately when I got that job offer, I knew I was going to take it. And so the spring was really nice because I knew that I had a job all this spring. I didn't have the stress of like wondering what I was gonna do. I was really happy and like content with what I had decided to do, and so that definitely took a lot of like stress and just guesswork off of my plate this year. And so it's honestly been a wonderful year. I've gotten to enjoy a lot of the fun parts of college, and this hasn't been a super stressful year for me, which I am so grateful for. I know COVID definitely changed my college experience from what it would have been, but I'm happy that like the first year and that the last year that I was here wasn't really that heavily affected by COVID. And yeah, this year was just a wonderful year, and I'm grateful to go out on a good note. So now I'm going to jump into talking about my major and like my experience with my major and my advice to anyone else. So I am in the Terry College of Business, and I am a marketing and finance major, and then I have certificates in entrepreneurship and sustainability. And a certificate's basically kind of like a minor, except for it's usually maybe requires a little bit less hours, or it's something that's more like practical than a minor. I don't know if that's the right terminology for it, but yeah, anyways, so I had 2 majors, 2 certificates. It was definitely a lot. Like I said, so when I came into school, I applied into the business school, and I always knew that I wanted to be a business major in some sense. So for me personally, what worked with graduating on time with having 2 majors and 2 certificates was, so when I came into school, I took 17 hours, which is like the max you can take without having to get approval my first semester here, and then everything after that I pretty much took 15, 16, or 17. And I came in, I was like very studious in high school, and so I knew I could do it coming in, taking that many hours to begin with. And I also knew that if I started myself off with taking the max number of hours, then it would just feel like a routine, and taking anything less than that would be a treat, but having to take 16, 17 hours wasn't going to feel like a chore because it was just going to be like the normal for me. And like I said, I was very studious. I knew I could handle it. So for me coming in, that's what worked. I also had some like AP and IB credit from high school that put me like roughly a semester ahead. I also took summer classes every single summer. I took 1 class my first summer, 1 my second. Oh no, that's not true. I took 1 my first summer, 2 my second summer, and then 2 this third summer, which I didn't think I was gonna have to take any of this third summer, but it didn't work out like that. But yeah, anyways, honestly, summer classes are chill. I worked every summer while I took classes. Usually if you only have 1 or 2, and I never had 2 at the same time, but it was honestly a good experience. I would definitely recommend taking summer classes if you need to stay on track to graduate on time and you do want to graduate on time. So coming in, I applied into school as a marketing major, and that's what I remained in. And I know sometimes people like look at a business major and they're like, oh, like that's the major you are if you don't know what you want to do with your life. But for me, I always knew that I wanted to be a business major. As much as I loved animals and as big of an animal person as I am, the sciencey side never really appealed to me. I thought at best that I would be able to use my business major to go work with a company that works with animals, but my passion was really in the business realm. And so you have to apply into the Terry College of Business. You can't just say I want to be this major. So I applied in, I got in as a marketing major. But I really liked my accounting and my finance classes, more of the mathy side of things. And so I was like, well, I can be a double major and graduate on time if I really put my mind to it. And I just really enjoyed those classes and like didn't want to let that aspect of business go. And so I added a finance major. I thought finance would be a little bit more generally applicable than accounting, because I knew I didn't want to become a CPA or work strictly in accounting. I just wanted more of the skills of that. And so I added my finance major. Like I said, I did have a crisis that first semester because I took a bad combination of classes combined with being overwhelmed from having other responsibilities and then not having a great professor for that one class. So I dropped one of my finance classes my first semester, and I debated for like 2 months at least, like, should I keep this finance major? Should I drop it? You know, how much is this going to affect my future? Does it really even matter? All the things. I went back and forth, but I ultimately decided to keep it. For me, I honestly didn't want to be a quitter of having gotten rid of one of the majors, and also the principle of why I added the finance major to begin with, all the things that I wanted to learn about running a business, really still stood. And so I knew that I was not going to be able to take 3 finance semesters, both semesters of my senior year. And so I decided to take 2 summer classes on top of my internship. And that first class, one of the classes I took was like an upper level accounting class. And that class was definitely a lot. Like I would get off of my internship in the evening and I would eat dinner and take an hour. And then I would sit down and usually do like at least 2 hours of schoolwork. So I definitely was grinding, but I am so glad that I kept that major. After I got past that first hurdle of the first semester being so rough, I really enjoyed everything that I learned in those classes, and I know it's going to give me such better business knowledge going forward into the future. Part of the reason I also added 2 majors in business was because I am not dying to go back to school and get my MBA. Never gonna say never. I don't know what the future holds for me, but I'm not someone that like needs the MBA for the ego. Like I'd be good just have my bachelor's degree and living my life. And because I was really interested in both, I was like, the more I know about business, I think the less likely I will need to go back and get a secondary degree if I have a strong foundation in both marketing and finance. And I was always interested in marketing because I liked the combination of like people and business, which is why I added that to begin with. But I was pretty fortunate to love both of my majors. Like I loved going to class, learning all the things. It was definitely hard at times, but overall I would sit in class and really just enjoy what I was learning. So that's kind of maybe my major advice. Just really think about, do you like this? And if you don't, why are you doing this? I do know some people that are like pre-vet, and obviously no one wants to go through like Gen Chem and OChem, and it sucks, but it fits in with the greater path of what they want to do with their life, so that makes a lot of sense. But if you're like an English major and you're sitting in these classes and you're like, I hate this, then take a step back, because personally I've always been someone that likes being a student, but I really did enjoy like sitting in my classes and learning all the things. I also added my certificates in entrepreneurship and sustainability. So my sustainability certificate, I kind of started that on my study abroad trip, and then I took some other classes, and for the most part I killed two birds with one stone with that certificate. So like I was taking a class that I would have to take anyways, except for a few classes at the end. But I was always interested in sustainability from my love of animals, but also just my interest in helping businesses become more sustainable. So that's why I added that certificate. And then my entrepreneurship certificate was also kind of the same. Those classes counted as electives, and I became really involved in the entrepreneurship program and really interested in becoming an entrepreneur myself one day, or working for like an early stage company. And so I completed that certificate as well, and that was like a great experience to give me more business knowledge. Also, last thing I want to say about the majors is your major does not define you. It really does not. Obviously, if you want to go into like a sciencey field, you need to be having a major that aligns with that. You don't need to be a English major that wants to go to med school. You know, that doesn't really make sense unless you are also an English and a biology major or whatever. But I have a lot of friends that are like psychology majors, or not something that's strictly business, and yet they're still going to work in business. So there are a lot of open options for you. One of the things I would say, if you're like halfway through school now and you're like, oh, like I don't want to change my major, like maybe you're an English major, but you don't want to go get your PhD and be an English professor or an English teacher. You want to go work in business. So a lot of my friends that were not business majors that want to work in business added things to kind of give them a businessy edge. So they would add a certificate. A certificate in entrepreneurship is what a lot of my friends had. You can also add like a minor in business, and then they would also get internships in their field. And I know there's a lot of strengths that other majors can bring to business. So, you know, psychology, you learn so much about people and the way they work that can really help you in the sales and the marketing field. And there's definitely a lot more jobs and job descriptions out there that don't align with like a strict major division. So I definitely would say keep that in mind, that your major does not define you. So the next thing I'm going to jump into is talking about clubs and my experience and advice with them. In my humble opinion, clubs really made my college experience, and I think that if you're in college and you're not taking advantage of some of the clubs that your university has to offer, that you are really missing out. I feel like a lot of the other college YouTubers I've watched were not really that involved with clubs, not counting their sorority or anything like that, probably because they were partially doing YouTube and involved in other things. But for me, clubs just really made my college experience. I got to meet a lot of great people, and I just had a lot of fun with them. So like I said, freshman year I came in, I don't know, I saw all these clubs at the club fair. I was like, oh, I'm interested in that, I'm interested in that. My advice, and this is also advice that I've gotten professors, and I think it's great: come in, join a lot of clubs, see what you like, see what sticks, then drop your club involvement down to really no more than 3 clubs. I have been involved with 2 strongly throughout my time here, and within those clubs become more involved and get into a leadership role. Not only is that going to be good from like a resume perspective of getting a job, you know, they don't just want to see that you are part of a million things, they want to see that you really gained a skill within those clubs, but also that's like the way to make sure that you're really getting like the meat out of what the club is supposed to be, and you're not just like touching on all these different things. So I came in freshman year, joined a bunch of different things, and then from there I narrowed it down. Clubs are great in terms of like the practical things they can help you with, so networking, getting a job, but they should also be something that you enjoy. And you know, maybe for you have your club that's like more on the boring side, but it's gonna help you with your career or with connections. But I also think you should be involved in clubs that are a lot of fun for you. So for me, my entrepreneurship club was both practical and fun. we just put on a lot of fun events. The people around there are really amazing. People are really passionate about their different ideas and all the things that they're doing. So I enjoyed going to events and meeting people and talking to people. But I also got to meet a lot of great entrepreneurs, which has been great for connections, but also just inspiring me in terms of my own business ideas and my own career path. And then the other club I was involved in was the club equestrian team. So coming to college, I had not ridden horses all throughout like middle school and high school, but I loved horses. I really wanted them to be in my life again, especially after I stopped playing volleyball at the end of high school. I wanted like another activity, and I always wanted to ride English and learn how to jump. So I joined the club equestrian team my freshman year. I was a non-competing member then, so I wasn't super involved, and then I was gone that spring. But I came back sophomore year and I started being a competing member. I started showing. I really jumped headfirst into the team. I would have my weekly lessons, and we would have other like volunteer activities, club meetings, all of that. That was also a great experience to be around people that were interested in the same things I was. It really helps you feel like you belong here. One of my really good friends now was my lesson partner on the team together. And then I've also just been friends with all the other girls that are on the team. A lot of them are just fun people to be around. Like I said, it's really enjoyable to be around people that are interested in the same thing as you are. So yeah, that was my experience, and I'm really glad that I did not remain in like the 6 clubs that I was probably in freshman year, because that can get overwhelming. But to really be involved in the clubs that I was an incredible experience, and college definitely would not have been the same if I had not been involved in these things. So I haven't touched too much on like the friends aspect of college, I guess because I'm not exactly sure what to say about it. I do think this would maybe be better in my like advice video or like college survival guide video that I want to make. But like I said, joining clubs was definitely a fantastic way to make friends. Also just making an effort to be social and to reach out to people, especially freshman year when you're coming in and like no one really has friends or knows what they're doing. Don't be afraid to not be friends with people sometimes though. And what I mean by that is that you're gonna meet a lot of different people in college, people from all walks of life. And I'm someone that I can get along with pretty much anyone, but I'm not going to let you into my life or let you in as a close friend if our like morals and values aren't aligned in some sense. And I have friends that definitely we are not the same on certain things, so I don't think all your friends need to be like an echo chamber of what you believe. But at the same time, if you're around someone that is making like explicitly bad choices, or you think is a bad person or is a lot of drama, like it's okay to not want to be friends with them. That doesn't mean you can't get along with them or you can't be cordial with them, but like you don't have to hang out with someone just because they want to hang out with you. And definitely the people you surround yourself with are so important for who you're going to be going forward in life. And from my humble experience, from what I've seen with myself and what I've seen and observed with other people, like having good friends and like good people surrounding you is like make or break for whether you leave college being a better person and a better version than what you were when you came in, or being a worse version. So I don't know, keep that in mind. I definitely think the people that you are friends with are everything. But yeah, looking back on my 4 years here, I am so grateful that I came to school here and that the universe, God, whatever you believe in, really aligned for me to come to school here when I did not think this was the path for me in the beginning. And I'm so glad that it worked out and that I came to school here. I love UGA. I loved being at a big school like this and really being surrounded by a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds. And I love all the friends that I made here. There's also a lot of resources going to a big school and a lot of school spirit being at a big school, being national champions this year. There's just I don't know, nothing else that compares to like the feeling of feeling like you belong in something like that. I don't know how to describe it, but there's a big feeling of like camaraderie, and we definitely have a ton of school spirit here. And I'm really grateful because I learned a lot. I'm graduating with some great degrees, and like I said, I'm not graduating with the student debt I would be graduating with if I had gone to a school out of state. And yeah, I love UGA. I'm really gonna miss Athens. Go Dogs. Like I said, I would like to film like a college survival guide, what to do coming into freshman year if you're just freaking out like I was and have no clue what you're gonna do. So if y'all would like to see that video, definitely comment below. But thank you for watching this, and I hope you gained something from my own experience that might help you with yours.